broadcasting live from an undisclosed location in the universe. Welcome to Iggy Garcia Live, the show where metaphysics, holistic living, motivation, and inspiration come together to empower your mind, body, and soul. We will dive deep into the realms of metaphysical wisdom, exploring the fascinating connections between mind and matter. Get ready to ignite your inner spark and embrace a journey of self-discovery. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride.
What's up, everybody? Iggy Garcia Live here. I'm Iggy Garcia. I hope you can stick around for a little bit and just hang out with me for a little bit. Before we start every show, I just want to acknowledge the people that came before me and light a candle for my ancestors. That's what we do in my tradition. Lighting a candle, maybe. And there we go. Lighting the candle. This is about dead. Hold on a second, guys. Let's do it the old-fashioned way. Matches. Strike a pose. All right, here we go. Okay, the candle's lit. Well, we light this candle. We give thanks to our ancestors. We give thanks to those who came before us and those who trailblazed and, prepared the space for us to be where we are today. Like I always remind everybody, it took a lot of people to get us here. When I mean a lot of people, it's like 4,000 some plus people just to get you here and your siblings, if you have any. And, that's a lot of energy. That's a lot of synergy. That's a lot of power. So give thanks to the Creator and give thanks for giving us this moment in time as we light a little Palo Santo. Set the tone for us today. Boy, God, that smells so good. That smells great. All right. Let's light a little bit more of that. Man, that's really good. Really good, really good, really good. Anyhow. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about, what I've been doing. And basically, usually I do a show right off the bat on the first, New Year's Eve, or whatever you want to call it, But I decided that I was going to do a little different shift this time. And I was just going to wait a little bit, go through the middle of the month and see how it takes me and where it takes me and how I'm doing, how I'm feeling. This year, I didn't do anything special. I didn't go and celebrate. I didn't go and I just stayed home and I just relaxed and just minding my own business, I guess is the best way of saying it. I just didn't feel called to be in that festive mode and festive mood. The last several years that I celebrated and stuff, I ended up finding myself in hospital, not being well because of, contagious things and sick people, not telling people they're sick, so they keep passing on the little, germies onto one another. So I also wanted just to spend time with my family and just be, where I was, where I needed to be. And it was nice. It was a nice change. Just quiet, and just enjoyed, I was just being in the present moment and just being where I'm at. And that was a shift for me. That was a huge change for me because I'm one of those people who really like to engage with other people. I like to be part of, people's lives. I like to share and I like to present my medicine in my work with others. And in that moment, I just didn't feel like doing that. I felt like just working on me, working on the aspects of myself. And that's not always easy, working on ourselves. Excuse me for a second. As I drink my mushroom coffee. And so, now that we're more than halfway into the month, I decided to do a show today because I figured, it gives me time to reflect and think about things. And, 2025 for me was really powerful a year, 24 and 25. I found that 25 was a good time to experiment, to reevaluate myself and get into the places I needed to be, exercising, getting fit, finding myself healthier. But then I hit a roadblock in July, and it was not so much that I wasn't doing the right things, that I wasn't shifting into the right program, taking care of myself. I was still doing all the work, but not changing parts of the work. So I wasn't shifting into, I was shifting from 1, 2 gear, and then trying to go into 3, and I couldn't go into 3 because I was still in second gear, thinking I was going into 3. And, and it was just a slight, adjustment. But I had to go through so much detriment and so much confusion and pain and frustration and anger and almost killing myself because I wasn't paying attention to the signs that, almost wasn't here last July. That was almost over, and it's because of my diet. It wasn't so much that I wasn't exercising right, that I wasn't doing things. It was what I was eating. And, it was what I was putting in my mouth, in the information, the feeling, the emotions. And most of it was the nutrition factor of my diet. And, today, when I wear this little monitor, and I was getting them, through my insurance. And now my insurance was charging me like $100. It's $100 every 10 days, not like once a month or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, that's not happening. So I decided that, I'm not going to wear this monitor because I've had enough time to study my patterns of what I'm doing now. It's helping me. I can still check my sugar. I can still prick myself and stuff if I have to. But I realize now that it was just a shift. It was just me stepping over here and reevaluating what was putting in my mouth, and not having excuses to say, okay, well, I'll just eat a little bit of this. Listen, you can ask my wife. I have been very vigilant on what I ingest, because I'm not on insulin anymore. I'm not taking any medication for my diabetes because I don't have diabetes anymore. I am prone to diabetes if I do the wrong things. So, this is where I wanted to talk about, shifting your energy, shifting your beliefs and your ideas, and not being a victim of, what the system tells you to be. My doctors and my, the nurse practitioner, they didn't believe that I could beat this. They didn't, in their right mind, because when I talked to them, I said, so, when I get off of it, it was kind of like, you're never going to get off of it. They should have just said that. But, I'm stubborn, and I said, I gotta work to this. This, I can't live like this. I have no problem eating what I need to eat but I can't be injecting myself with stuff if I don't have to. And so, you know what? I decided that I'm going to shift all the aspects of my belief system, all the aspects of what I think is right and wrong, shift all the ideas about food and all the ideas about exercising. So I shifted all that energy. My friend Jeremy lived with us for about a year, and he watched me go through the struggles and watched me go through the things. So he's a testament to what I did and how I went through stuff. And, I was in a bad place, man. And, that was worse than having COVID for me personally. I can't speak for other people, but for me, that was really bad because it was like When I went into the hospital, the doctors looked at me and they're like I was like this miracle person or this fool. I don't know what they thought, but it was like, we're surprised you're not in a coma or dead. My sugar was at 1100, and I didn't know what that meant. But it was the things I was eating. It was the processed foods. It was the refined foods. It was the sugars. It was all the things that, I just took for granted because I've done it so many times in my whole life, just eating things and putting whatever I put in my mouth. And, I have some really good friends who will actually cook certain things. Like if I go to their events, they'll make certain types of meals so that I can eat. So I don't eat sugars. I don't eat refined sugars. I don't eat flour. I rarely eat rice. If I eat rice, it's brown rice. And, but potatoes, nothing. And it's just the little things that shifted. Because now instead of cane sugar or sugar, if I get cane sugar, it's just in very tiny amounts. But I don't add sugar to my coffee, but I'll use stevia. There's monk fruit and all this different stuff. I use coconut sugar sometimes, or creamer, or whatever they have. So I know, and I've learning to know what I need to eat. What proteins to eat, what foods go with what foods, what I need. Because it was me shifting my belief system. The biggest thing was that I was not going to be what they wanted me to be. That's where it was for me. That I wasn't going to be dependent on this thing. And I know some of you and some friends of mine have to take the medication just because you have to, because I don't know, your bodies just don't work anymore. But our bodies become dependent on the things we put into it. And listen, I was weighing 260 in February of last year. My doctor's like, you really need to lose weight. And we did that. And I know you've heard this in other radio shows that are done. But, I did. But I didn't change my diet. I was still eating it. I was working hard, sweating, doing all the things. My body was in conflict with itself. I was in conflict. I thought because I ate fruit that, it was good for me, but I was eating the wrong fruits. I was eating foods at the wrong times. But, learning to shift out of the energy that I was in into the energy that I'm in now. I'm the same Iggy, but I'm a different version of myself. I'm one who has learned and adapted. And, I don't mean to make this show about myself, but if I can shift and change, then I hope I can give hope to somebody else to shift and change. But I knew that I couldn't have that attitude, the attitude of being, well, it's just a little bit of this or a little bit of that. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I don't know what I'll do if I don't eat that, That's where I made the conscious decision, the shift in my life. The biggest change is to say no. I haven't drank a pop. I haven't, drank anything. I haven't done anything that I know will spike my sugar levels. I've been on a steady line course. I even surprised myself. Honestly, quite frankly, really surprised myself. I know exactly if I eat what foods and what foods will spike me, but I haven't spiked way beyond the parameters where they were worried about. But in the past, I had no clue. I was just eating whatever I eat. I would eat a whole thing of watermelon, I would drink orange juice, which is, now I find that it's just like the worst thing for you, because it's like eating 4 or 5 oranges, all one setting, one glass, because of the sugar content. But I didn't know that. I've always been told orange juice is good for you. I was told this is good for you. This is good for you. I even bought into that. Oh, it's Coca-Cola, but it's got cane sugar. So, cane sugar is better than regular processed beet sugar, right? But what did I find out? Too much of anything is a bad thing. So I just made a conscious decision, and I shift my ideologies and my beliefs about things. And, and also was ashamed that I couldn't teach my body that in those moments. But it's a lesson. It's a powerful lesson I had to learn. I had to suffer through that, and I'm really sad that I had to go through that. But that's the only way that God was going to get to me and say, hey, listen, you need to change your life. you know, and you need to do things. If you want to live and you want to do better, then you have to do that. And it's kind of like everything that we do in life, right? We have to shift into the certain areas of our lives, you know, shifting into, the energies of people who resonate with us, people who are like us, or people who are different than us, and what that means for them to be in our life. I also learned that I can't just have anybody walk into my life and just, know that they're going to be good for me. I really need to ask those pointing questions. What do you bring to my life? What do I bring to your life? If, we don't resonate, it's not that I don't like you. It's just that we just don't resonate. And, you can have good friends, bad friends. You can have friends who are different minded, different ideologies, different belief systems. But you got to take care of your spirit. You got to take care of your soul. You got to take care of yourself. And remember, your mind, your personal mind, who you are as a human being, needs to be yours. If you don't agree with something, you have the right to say nothing or say everything you want. But understand, not everybody's going to agree with you. Not everybody's going to be in alignment with you. And then there are people going to be in alignment with you and agree with you. But if you're looking for, to be recognized or to be stroked or whatever, or your ego or whatever, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. If you don't agree with somebody's ideologies and beliefs, you have choices to either say, okay, I don't agree with that. Number 2, I agree with that. Or number 3, voice your opinion about it. So many of us have situations where we just let people walk over us because we teach them how to do that. People treat us how we teach them to treat us, and, everybody who has friends knows that, because you have friends that you can talk a certain way. You have other friends that you can't talk to. You have other friends that if you even mention something about anything that's remotely one way or the other, that they're going to freak out. That they just can't handle the truth, your truth of your version of the perception that you created about what you see. And that's what human beings do. We see the world through our own lenses, through our own rose-colored lenses. You can sit here and tell me, oh, no, it's that way, it's wrong, blah, blah, blah. It could be wrong for you. It doesn't mean it's wrong for me. Or maybe I see that it's wrong, but also see the possibilities of it being better. But so many of us, we don't talk like that. We don't think like that because it's too much work for a lot of people. It's too much work to say, oh, people can change. People can change. People do change. People want to change. People want to generally be good. I've come to find that most people really want to do the right things in life. Most people don't go out of their way to create animosity or create dysfunction. Excuse me, but a lot of people go through some stuff that molds them and changes them for forever in their life. I know people who don't like me. And that may be a shocker, but there are people who don't like Iggy Garcia because they see Iggy Garcia for how they perceive me and how they experience me. Not so much who I really am and how I live and what I do. They have their own judgments about themselves that they, throw on me about who they think I am or how they think that I do things. And, that's really unfair for anybody to do that to anyone. Just because I say something or do something, that doesn't mean that that's how I am. I'm just like that in the present moment. I'm in this feeling and those feelings in that moment. And, sometimes, we can we can shift. There's this thing where people say, well, you can't just be like this one moment and then be this way this other moment. Sure you can. Because sometimes someone talks to you and they give you a perspective on something and they say, hey, have you ever looked at it like this? And you're going, no, I never looked at it like that. I never thought about it like that. Well, that's how we can change. If we're open-minded and we're open and available to understand that everybody's different. That we want everybody to, if you want people to come to your side, you want people to hear what you had to say, then listen to what they have to say. Listen to what they're actually telling you. Today I posted something about the church thing, where they went in there and busted the church. And the protesters stormed in there, and because supposedly one of the guys who was not there was an ICE agent or a director. I don't know the whole details. And, that's the reality of the world. That's where we're living right now. This is the kind of stuff that's happening. But I had posted because I was in disagreement with that, and I still am. I'm sorry, but I don't agree with that. What happened? I don't think that you have the right to walk into someone's space and just do whatever you want. You know, these people, didn't know what was happening. I'm sure. They were like, "Oh my God, someone's here to come and shoot us and kill us," like they do in all these other school shootings and in church raids. Nobody knows that. You have no way to distinguish what's happening. It's just happening so quickly and so fast and so furious that everybody's shell shocked, in that moment. But the ones who know that they're doing, they did it. So I disagree with that. I didn't agree with that, and I still don't agree with that. I don't care if it's your freedom of religion, your freedom of expression, your freedom to protest, and to right to assemble. You have the right to do all that stuff, but not in someone's house, not in someone's space. That's why they put you on the sidewalk when you go to the strip joint and you protest against the strip joint when churches protest. They don't like, could you imagine if they walked into the strip joint and did that? Oh my God, they'd probably get all punched and kicked out the door, right? Or who knows, maybe everybody sits down and prays. Who knows? It was cool to see, and I don't know how true this is, but it was cool to see that people were praying for the protesters, and maybe a protester was praying with people. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm only gathering information from what has been disseminated to me, what I have broken down and created the discernment in my mind what was happening. The news shows one thing, people show another thing. The people who were really there, I don't know what they're feeling because I haven't heard too much from them. But I'm sure there's a lot of things that were going on through a lot of people's minds. So everything that we filter through, we have to filter through all this stuff. But I know one thing, and I talked about this earlier, how when I had my sweat lodge in my house, and how I invited my neighbors to the house. And then, of course, that didn't go well because they accused me of witchcraft. They accused me of, devil worship. It's because they're ignorant. They don't know any better, but still had to go through the process. Still had to go through the process where I had to prove and and they wanted me to tear down my sweat lodge. And, like I said, and it ended up going to court, but not into official court because all the letters people wrote for me in the organization that I have. But not too many people know about this, because I don't talk about it too much. But I was religiously persecuted, by Perry Township here in Columbus and here in Ohio. They decided that, what I was doing was wrong. So they wanted to asked me to take it down. They wanted me to put a permit on my sweat lodge. This is my religious belief. And the judge was like, well, I don't want this to go to court. You guys figure it out. Perry Township came with a permit. It says $25 for a gazebo permit. And I've learned from the Native American church that you do not engage in permission and permits and stuff, because as soon as you give them authority over you, they have the authority to dictate you. So if I gave them $25, they would have told me the gazebo or the sweat lodge has to be like this, like this, like this. And they could have said I can't build it. And then they had all the right due cause to take me to court and say no. But what did they do? Because nothing happened, because they couldn't do anything, because they knew they were violating my religious freedoms, and everybody else who comes into the sweats and do these ceremonies. And people ask me why I don't do a lot of ceremonies and sweats, because I don't want to bring undue harm to people's space, because there are people who don't, agree with it. But anyways, going back to that, what did they do? Well, I lived in my dad's house, and I rented from him because my kids were going to school in Upper Arlington. So they put citations on my dad's house. They made him paint his house, which was a cedar house. You don't paint cedar. They cited my dad, because they said his driveway needed repairs, which it didn't, but they made him completely changed the driveway. And you know how much driveways cost. It wasn't a small driveway either. They made him cut down trees that didn't need to be cut down. They cited him when the grass got over 2 inches or more, because he would cut at least twice a week. They would come and they harassed my dad to the point where my dad had asked me to move out because he says it's just too much. It's too much, and I can't pay for all these things that are happening. And so I was just like, wow, this is insane. This is like nuts. And that's how I ended up in my mother-in-law's house, living here with them and taking care of my father-in-law, mother-in-law at the time. I'm still here, and it's all good. But regardless, that's the kind of stuff that happens. So when I saw what happened in this church, and I saw what people were going through, it broke my heart, because I know how it felt for someone to say, you can't, what you're doing is wrong, blah, 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 you know. And even in the other spaces that I have, sweat lodges, I've conducted sweat lodges, I've had other religions who are there, supportive, but also kind of offstandish about it, like, well, we can't really do this or do that. We can't touch your area because, it's contaminated, you make you feel like you're dirty, and I wasn't dirty. But anyhow, so that's why that bothered me. That's why it really triggered me that people thought it was okay to do that. Is it okay to do that? Absolutely not. We have laws to protect people to be able to assemble, to worship what they believe in. Listen, you can worship whatever you want, believe whatever you want, be in alignment with whatever you want. Who am I to say that you're right or wrong? Who's to say my faith's better than your faith? It's not. It does, because it's all subjective, because it's always going to be from the place of where you have learned, where you have grown up, where have you been indoctrinated. Whatever came from your family is passed on to the next, to the next, to the next. So it's just a cycle. And so, but either way, in this country, we have laws that protect people. And I understand the situation with ICE and stuff. And it's just all this shifting energy right now that we're going through. We're going through all this, this chaos a little bit. But we always go through chaos. Humanity always goes through chaos. The illusion is that this is a new event. This is something new. This is just another stage. This is just another version of chaos. This is another version of disruption. This is another version. Every generation will have their chaos, their disruption, their thing. Even when we're gone and dead and no longer here, the most of us who will be here in 100 years won't be here. The majority of us who are watching this live stream, 150 years, 100, 200 years, none of us will be here, and none of us will probably be even remembered for what we did or if we even existed. The only people who know that we existed are the ones who are presently watching this live stream, the persons who are actually, connected to one another, and hopefully our grandkids and our children, keep our memory going. Even after 2-3 generations, no one will remember me. No one will remember you. And if you don't have any kids, your dog might remember you. But they'll be long gone. So we come to this place about shifting and understanding, what's going on, what's happening, and why we're angry and we're frustrated. We get frustrated, we get angry because we believe injustice is happening. But yet we won't even do the smallest things to help our neighbor. We won't even do the smallest things to help our neighbor. We'll drive 100 miles or 600 miles away to protest and to, complain and raise hell. We won't even take care of our own neighborhood, our own place. How many of you, and I'm sure there's some of you, really know your neighbor next door? Could you go next door and say, hey, what's up? How you doing? My name is Iggy. Oh, like, oh my God. But most of your neighbors, most people that I know in this neighborhood, people come to visit them or they go visit other people. No, there's not too many neighbors come knocking on my door and saying, what you're doing. Hey, what's going on? Love thy neighbor. I love them. But you know what? It's just proof right there that how disconnected humanity is. That we don't even know our own neighborhood. We don't even know the people in the area we live. Yeah, we know them by name. I know, Susan over here. I know Frank over here. I know John across the way. I know the guy behind me. But it's like we don't really know each other. We don't really have anything that connects us, other than the houses that are landlocked to our properties. And that's kind of how humans live. We were kind of like that. We search outside of ourselves, outside of our parameters for connection. Majority of us have connections that are further away from where we live. We're lucky if we have our parents. We're lucky if we have our cousins. We don't even talk. Some of us don't even talk to our cousins, man. Some of us don't even talk to the family. I have family in Peru. And I'm guilty as anybody. I don't even talk to them very much. It's not that I don't love them. I don't care about them. It's just I don't have connections to them because I've been raised here and been in this world so long that I'm so busy and I'm so indoctrinated in the American way of this salad bowl, because it's not a melting pot, because if it was a melting pot, it would be a lot different. But we're salad. We're in a salad bowl, and this is my friend Ronnie always tells me we're a salad bowl. Some of us are cucumbers, some of us are lettuce, some of us are dressing, some of us are tomatoes, and we're all able to be digested in its own way and separated, in a certain way. But when you try to meld and mix things into itself, it doesn't work, because there's expectations of what you think things should be. You have this expectation that, and when you say melt, you're thinking like cheese, right? Like macaroni and cheese, right? And it's all conglomerated and it's all coming together. And that's not what we are. We're individual human beings having this human experience and living life the best way we can with the tools that we've been taught by our parents, our grandparents, or whoever taught them to you, or the tools that you have collected along the way to navigate through this world we call life. And some of us are really good at it, and some of us are really poor at it, and some of us are still working through it, and some of us don't care, and some of us care too much. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because you know what? In the end, it doesn't really matter. What matters is if you have faith in whatever that faith is, whatever your faith is, and that faith holds you and glue, keeps you in your spirit, then you do that. And two, if you have really good friendships and friends, you nurture those, you cherish those, you take care of those people who take care of you, you acknowledge them. And three, be honest with yourself. Where are you in this moment in time? You can't expect people to love you if you have a hard time loving yourself. No one's going to fix you. No one can fix you. Nobody wants to fix you. Nobody wants to go there, because as soon as someone tries to fix you or tell you what you need to change your life, you buck, I buck. We all go, there's nothing wrong with me. There's something wrong with you, No, it's not that. It's not that. We don't want to be gotten. We don't want to be fixed. We don't want to be manipulated. We don't want to be coerced. My dad told me one time, he goes, honey, it's not that your brothers and sisters don't love you. It's not that they don't want to hang out with you. It's not that you have a problem with you. It's that they have their own lives. And their own lives is enough and plenty for them to, sometimes too much to handle that for themselves, let alone just have you in their lives. And they grew up with you and they know you in their own perception, their own way. But it's not that they don't love you. It's that they are where they need to be in order for them to be centered in their core belief systems. And sometimes you don't fit in that. You don't fit in that system. You don't belong. And it's not that they don't care about you. It's not that they don't love you. It's just that they have their own belief systems and you don't resonate with that and you don't connect with that. It doesn't matter if you're siblings or not. That's why friends you have that you create along the way, people who you find, family of choice, we call them family of choice, right? People we create, they're sometimes more important than our own family, because they get us, they understand us. Some of you are on here right now. My friend Sherry's on here. She's family choice. She's been in my life, and I met her in a situation where I would probably never met her, but spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, brought us all together in a certain way, and I've watched her go through things. I've watched myself go through things, and the grieving process, and still processing and working through that, so there's a lot of good people here, and so if I go off base a little bit, it's because sometimes I'm a human being, man. I get frustrated too. I see things that I think are not just, and so I will make a point to point it out, because I have to hear myself sometimes say, hey, you know what, is this right? Is this correct? Because if this isn't correct, I really need to check in, And sometimes when you check in with people who aren't qualified to give you a good answer, then sometimes you set you on the wrong course. So be careful where you're getting your information. Be careful where you're getting your check-ins with people, because not everybody's qualified to give you the right answers. Maybe I'm not qualified to give you the right answers, but regardless, it's important to know that people that come into your world, are there for a reason. They're there to teach you. They're there to, you know, they're not there to like necessarily hold you or caress you or whatever. But they're there to honor you, who you are. I have a lot of people like that. They just honor me for who I am versus trying to fix me or make me what they need me to be, and we pick up where we left off. We could be gone for a couple months or a year or two, and then we just pick right up where we left off. And I'm like that with my brother. I'm like that with my sisters. We just pick up where we left off. I'm not like hung up on them that I don't see them anymore. There was a time because I was in a different place and different idea, different mind. I was raising a family. I wanted my kids to see what family was like. It got to the point where I didn't teach them properly in that aspect, what it meant to be half family. They want to have their own traditions. I watched my family break apart, my siblings from my mom and dad, because they wanted to have their own Christmases and stuff. But nobody compromised. No one said, can we just get together with mom and dad on another day? But no, it's Proud Pop said, no, I want Christmas, you guys to come on Christmas Eve and blah, blah, blah. And then it stopped happening because everybody was fixated that, that my dad was a controlling person and blah, blah, blah. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. I don't know. I'm old fashioned, so I loved going to my dad's. And then came a point where we just stopped doing it. And you know what? My dad's not here anymore. My mom's not here anymore. And I don't get to experience that other than when I was a kid. But, we take people for granted sometimes, and we don't mean to. And people take us for granted sometimes because they expect us to be a certain way or act a certain way, behave a certain way. Quite frankly, the person who, that I'm accountable to and have to have a lot of, canter with, and someone who I have to have a lot of respect for and show respect to is my wife. She's a big part of my life. She's taught me a lot of things. Have I screwed up with her over the past years? Yeah, of course I have. Has she screwed up with me? Probably. I don't know. But I know that I did a lot of damage to our relationship in the past when I was a younger man. But I'm not a younger man anymore. I'm an older man with different ideas, different beliefs. And I try to move forward into the better space. I try to navigate and do things more properly than what I did before. But, we're constantly shifting. Shifting is always moving us into different ideas and ideologies and belief systems. And, we're constantly growing. You never stop growing. We got to keep growing. Even when the hard times are coming right now with all the things that we see, everything that's happening in this world, everything that's happening in our country, our little country of the United States of America, it's going to be 250 years old, which is a young country. Be patient because not everything lasts forever. Be grateful that we have this opportunity to be able to do what we do here. I've been to other countries. People from other countries have come here. And, it's not that this is the only country that has freedoms and stuff, but this is a country that's very unique. It's how it goes outside the norms of how things are handled than we do. The majority of us can walk down the street and not be fearful of our lives and not have to worry about stuff. Even with all the situation with ICE and all this stuff, I can still walk down my street. Like I told everybody, ICE, the situation with ICE, that's a whole different thing. It's a whole different thing. Does it affect everybody? In some way or another, it probably does. For some people, they're good. They're like this, do it because we need it. For other people, like, we're violating people's rights, And wherever you're at, it's okay. You have the right to believe and adjust and think whatever you need to think about that, whatever aligns with. But please understand that not everybody's going to agree with either way you go, with whatever way you think it is. Doesn't make it right or wrong. If you think ICE is a bad thing, there are other people who don't think that. And that doesn't make them bad. That's just what their belief is. That's what they think. That's how they feel. And it's not my child. It's not it's not for me to say that they're right or wrong. As much as there's people who say that ICE is a bad thing. Because I don't think ICE is a bad thing. For some of you probably go, oh, some people think they're Gestapo Nazi. I don't think that. You can think whatever you want, because that's where your mind's at. My mind doesn't look at them like that. A person who is Hispanic, a person who is on deportation lists for years, as a kid, I went through that process, and I understand. I totally get why things are the way they are and why things do. And things shift and things change. But remember, even this presidency won't last forever. It's going to be over eventually. And then you'll have another person that comes in with different belief systems, ideas, and then there'll be another group of people who are going to be frustrated with that person, and they're going to complain about that guy or that girl, whoever wins the next time. Because that's what we do. That's what human beings do. We got to find the conflict. We got to find, the differences in all of us, because it makes things more spicy. Now listen, a lot of you have bombarded me with propaganda on both sides of the fence. And you know what, quite frankly, I don't read it. I just delete it, because you know what? It doesn't do me any good. All right? Because when we stop thinking of people as human beings, we have to look at people as human beings versus nationalities, color, and stuff. But we're so indoctrinated to think of things a certain way that we have to hold an identity that we're Hispanic, that we're Latino, that we're Black, that we're Asian, that we're this or that. Or we may not be human. We have no association. It's because we want to belong. Because human beings want to belong to things. Humans want to be part of things. But like if anything, if you think about it, if an alien race came here and took over this planet, I'm pretty sure, and their intentions weren't pure, I'm pretty sure we'd all gather together and fight that and figure out a way to, work through that process to, protect our home. Why can't we do that now? Because we're locked in beliefs and ideologies and systems that served our ancestors but don't necessarily serve us. We're here and we think that we have to do things a certain way, that we have to be a certain way. We don't have to be any way. We just choose to be this way because it's more convenient. It's easier to be part of something versus part of nothing. Humanity is the key to all things: peace, health, healing. But humans aren't designed. We're not designed to be peaceful. We're warriors as much as we are hunter-gatherers. They did it. They even did an experiment with mice, where they tried to create a utopian society with mice. And I think they got through 4 generations of mice. And eventually it all collapsed, because eventually the food ran out and there was problems. And, it just fell apart. And humans are that way too. If we don't create like these beliefs and these ideologies, it falls apart. It's like we're not designed to have pure bliss. We're designed to have a little bit of this, a little bit of that. As much as that sounds kind of crazy, what we resist persists kind of idea happens. It's another thing with the mice. They did an experiment with mice, and they put these mice, or that was rats, I think, but they put them in this tank, and they just let them tread for a little bit. And, some of the rats drowned, like within a matter of, 5-10 minutes, they drowned. And then they did it again with another set of rats. And they were getting to that point where they're just about to drown. And then they put like a flotation device, and they got on top of it, and they got rescued, and they survived. Some of you may know this experiment. And then they did it again with the mice, the rats. They put them back in the tank, no flotation device, and they floated and tread water. And I think they tread water for like 15 hours or 24 hours, like a whole day. And they survived. Compared to like the first group died in 5-10 minutes. And the reason that they survived is because they knew that if they hung in there, that they could survive, that they would live, that someone would throw them, throw them a bone, or throw them, a raft or whatever to save them. That's the thinking of a little creature thinking about that. If I just keep treading, help's on its way. But, but humans aren't like that. You know how humans are? This is how we are. Okay, and this is you probably have heard this too. There was this flood, it came and took out everything, and all the people's homes were flooded. And, and so this family was on top of their roof, and they had SOS on it, and, they were waiting to be rescued. And the first guy comes by with the boat, and he goes, "Hey, jump in, we'll save you." He goes, "Oh, no, we're just waiting, we're going to be rescued, we're going to be taken care of." We're like, "Oh, okay." And, and then another one comes, and then eventually they're like, "We're just waiting to be helicoptered out, blah, blah, blah." Then eventually, they drown and they die. They go to heaven, and they're like, "God, we prayed for you to help us and blah, 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 but you didn't help us. What happened?" He goes, "I don't know, ma'am. I sent you a boat. I sent you another boat, and you didn't get on any of those boats. And so I sent you Lifeline. And if you thought I was just going to come and save you, I sent the help, and you just didn't see the help." We're like that. Human beings are like that. Sometimes we get the lifelines, and we don't pay attention to the signs. We don't understand it. We just kind of have this grandiose expectations of how things should be. Sometimes you just got to get on and trust the process, and we don't do that enough. So I don't know why I brought the story up. It just felt like I had to share that for some reason. So, but it's about shifting, right? This is what my show is about. It's about shifting. So we can shift from our thinking of where we're at now versus where we want to be, and why we're not feeling changes, and where we don't feel things are happening in our lives. And it's just this little simplest thing. Sometimes we have to just move from here to there, and sometimes we don't do that because we think expectations has to be a certain way. So anyways, guys, I know there's a lot to cover. I know there's a lot to share, but I wanted to let you guys know real quick that my book, Drum Circles Made Easy, I updated it a little bit. I actually changed the pictures in here, and I put more current information that I wasn't able to do. Most of you guys don't know, this book right here, this book was my first book, like my very, very first book to tell. This is the class, when I took the class to learn how to self-publish, this is my 7-day book. I had to make this book in 7 days to prove that it can be done. And so the information here, I had to work on it within 7 days and produce it. And I did it. It's all free. I created it all free. I paid nobody to do it. And you can do it too. But if you want more information about that, let me know. I can help you with that, so you can shift into the energies you need to be, do what you need to want. And from that came my shaman book, came my coloring books. I'm working on a book right now, The Sacredness of Grieving. It's called The Sacredness of Grieving. How to grieve, and how to, work through the process, through different modalities, different processes of drumming, And this is not just for death. This is grief of, loss, grief of breakup, grief, just the world's too much to handle kind of thing. So this book is The Sacredness of Grieving that's coming out, that I'm working on right now. But my computer died and crashed, so I have to buy a new computer tomorrow. I'm going to buy a refurbished one because I can't really afford a brand new one at this time, because I put so much money into the work that I'm doing. But I've got several books that are coming out, and I'm working on them right now. I've got, some books on gardening and stuff that are coming out, because that's what I love. These are things, I'm writing books about things that I love to do and share. So I'm shifting into this energy. That's why you haven't really seen me I've been doing a lot of different stuff online, and haven't seen me really pushing, because I've been working on the aspects of sharing my creativity through writing, and through the books that I do, and through the avenues of what I work in. So, a lot of you don't know that I've been in business. I got books lined up. I have like manuscripts ready to roll, but it's just all time. It's just all time dedication and working on them. It's like anything. You gotta shift into that mode of working. I turned off my internet. Like I took off my Spectrum. I changed my Wi-Fi to T-Mobile, because I was paying too much money, wasting too much time, being distracted on TV sometimes. And so I'm I'm shifting as well to get into a different place and be able to work on things I need to do. Like right now, I'm doing this show on my phone because I have no computer, but I have to do a show because when the spirit calls you and when it's time, you do it. Number two, I'll be doing a weekly show again, like I used to. But I just wanted to let you guys know that, prepare for the shifts. Be open to the shifts. The shifts are positive. The shifts are good. And the shifts are good for us. And sometimes, we stay stagnant because we're afraid to move out of the energy that we're in, because it's more comfortable sometimes to be in a dirty diaper than to change the diaper until we get the diaper changed, right? When baby gets his diaper changed, he's like, oh man, it was so warm before, but now it feels a lot cleaner and I don't feel the rash on my ass, We're kind of like that. Human beings are kind of like that. Sometimes we like to wear the dirty diaper because it's convenient and it feels comfortable and it feels kind of right. But, sometimes we need to move out of that energy and shift our energy out. And sometimes we just need to hear it from somebody else. Maybe I've said something today that motivates you and puts you in the right track of mind. I hope so. I haven't really read your comments because they come in they come in weird on my phone because I'm not used to, watching it on my phone. But, guys, just be the best version of yourself that you can be. As you heal and as you progress and as you move forward into your spaces, into your new numbers in life, as your birthdays come and go, I'm 59. I remember when I was 29. I remember when I was 19. I can't even believe I'm 59. It's still kind of like blows my mind a little bit because I don't feel 59. I feel younger than that, and I feel more connected to myself than I've felt in a long time. And why is that? Because you're forced to, number one. Number two, you're open to this shift. You're open to the change. And, I understand that my time is finite, that I'm not going to be here forever. I get it. I understand that. So what better legacy to leave myself and the people I love and care about are these messages, maybe to be heard by a total stranger or somebody who just needed to hear a voice of compassion, love, and care, because I believe myself to be a loving and compassionate person, a person who hopefully understands people. Sometimes I get it right and sometimes I get it wrong. But regardless, it's because I'm a human being. And that's not an excuse and that's not a deterrent. It's the reality. I'm flawed. You're flawed. We're all flawed. And I will continue to be flawed. I will continue to strive for, perfection and the imperfection of life. I don't want to be perfect. Nobody wants to be perfect. We just want to be heard. We want to be understood. We want to be able to share. We want to be able to dance, laugh, sing, cry, eat, enjoy, and just enjoy the fruits of our labor, fruits of our life. Life has so much to give when we let life give us what we need. It's never too late to start. It's never too late to begin. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what illness or sickness you have. It doesn't matter what you've been through. The stories that we rewrite in our heads about who we think we are because of what happened to us. What happened to us is no longer. It's over. It happened. You can't be that same person. Even if you wanted to be that same person and go through those traumas and those things that hurt us, you can never be that person ever again. Because you can only evolve from that point and move forward into this new space of who you are. You can create and you can push forward all those energies that you don't like or dislike about other people or what happened to you. But it still doesn't make you who you are, because you are who you are in this moment. You are who you are in this present time. You present to the world who you are now, not what you were before. Even though the world can judge you for who you were before, it doesn't matter, because who you were before is not who you are today. You may carry some parts of that into the future about how you feel about certain things, but it's still, that's another human being. My 20-year-old human being version of myself is a whole different person with a whole different slew of problems, a whole slew of ideas and beliefs and things that he did or didn't do, or wish he would have done, or maybe had done. But now I'm here in today, in 2026, at, what am I? It's 10:33. 10:33. It's 10:33 in the evening. And I have control where I want to go today. Back then, I had control, but I didn't see what I need to see. Today, I don't know where I need to go. I don't know what I need to see, but I understand that whatever I decide to do from this point on here, I can do. It may or may not serve me. Hopefully it serves humanity. Hopefully it serves people. And maybe I'm just supposed to be today. Maybe we're just supposed to be who we are today. And yesterday doesn't really matter, even though we could be judged by the actions of yesterday, because that's what we do. Because there's some things that you just can't do and expect to be forgiven, or to be expect to, just kind of walk away. But there are things we can do today to make us better and to put us in a better light, put us in a better frame of mind. You could be angry at the world, but the world doesn't care if you're angry. It doesn't. The world doesn't care if you're happy. The world doesn't care if you're indifferent. The world doesn't care if you helped an old lady cross the street. The world just keeps going and keeps doing what it does. The only person who cares, the only person who knows what happens and who you are and what you do is you. Only you know the good things that you've done, and only you know the bad things you've done. Only you know the thoughts that you have in your head and what you think about other people and how you perceive other people. People love you, people care about you, people care about me, but they have their own lives to live. And they can only, sometimes, that's enough for some people to live their life, let alone just trying to help others. If you're able to help others along the way and give them what they need and what they want, that's great. But if you can't, that's great too. There's nothing you can do. This idea that, if we don't get it right, then we're not right. Nah, we're just human beings doing the best we can. But, we like to slam people because it's easy to slam people. It's easy to find fault in people. It's easy, to, point out the things that are wrong with people. But people in general, there's a lot of good things about people. Now, not all people are good, per se. Not all people come to this planet and are well or do the right things. But the majority, yes. The majority of the people come here and, when they're here, they try to do the right things while they're here. There are some, exceptions to the rule. Like in anything. It's like in the animal kingdom. There's exceptions to that too. Things happen there. But I understand this. Just be where you need to be. Be present for yourself. Receive what you need to receive. Disseminate it. Have discernment. Be open-minded. Be teachable. Teach others how to treat you in the way that you want to be treated. Don't just assume that people just know who you are, because people don't even know who they are. Don't assume that people know or have to know or should know what's right and wrong, because it doesn't work that way. One's value system is different than the other. Your value system is different than mine. Mine is different than yours. What you value, I don't value. What I value, you value. Vice versa. Sometimes we meet in the middle and we value what we see about each other. But when we start to see people as human beings, as another version of ourselves, another aspect of creation, another spark of God, then we have hope for change. We have hope for greater things. But sometimes, because we're human, we make bad choices. We make good choices. That's the cool thing about being human. We get it right sometimes. We get it wrong sometimes. Sometimes we don't do anything. And sometimes we're all in. Anyways, when someone writes something or says something to you, they're called half-truths. Part of them believes it. Another part of them doesn't. Another part of them is wondering, why did I write that? Why did I say that? And then there's another part that's like, well, I do believe that. I believe that 100%. You know those people. But anyhow, whatever you're in alignment with, honor it, love it, trust it, be with it. So for those of you who want to see the books that I've written, go to books.by/Iggy. Okay. So I'll put that on my site, but it's on my website too at iggygarcia.com. Friend me on social media posts. You can go to YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. You can see all the different things I do there on my TikTok, on my Instagram, my Facebook page. I even have a blog on my page. Join my email list. There's different ways to be connected with the work that I do, my ministry that I do. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this moment, and thank you for being with me, and thanks for sharing. And just remember, it's good to be here, and I believe that, even when it doesn't feel like it's good to be here. Iwisikwi means gratitude, in Quechua, the native tongue of the indigenous people of my land. Okay? What is above is below. Matakuyasin, aho, peace begins with me. All the things that I throw out there, I believe them. That's why I say them. I don't just say them to just say them and to be catchphrases. No. Worked really hard to understand what all those little things meant and what they mean to me and how they apply to my life and how they apply to the world. So just know that you make a difference in somebody's life, even if you don't even know that you're making a difference in their life. You have a connection with people. There are people that you move. There are people that you open their spirit and their soul. And there are people you close off. And there are people that get affected by just your presence. And that's okay, because that's what humans do. We're the magical triggers of life. We're magical triggers. Are we the mirror? Partially. There are aspects of others that remind us of ourselves, or the shortcomings of ourselves, or the empowerment of who we are. Sometimes we see what's beautiful in other people because we see the beauty in ourselves. It's not so much that we see the negative, it's also we understand. If we're able to see the things that we see, it's because there's a piece and part of us that is observing it. So anyways, guys, you guys have a great night. Just stay in touch with me and connect with me, and I appreciate all you guys who send me messages and ask me how my health is and how I've been doing. I'm going to report I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. I have good friends. I have good family. I have good doctors. I have, good naturopathic doctors. I just have a good team in my life, and I'm grateful for the people who are in my life. Even if I don't agree with you, even if you don't agree with me, I'm still grateful that you're in my life, because you know what? You give me different perspectives on how to see the world and how to experience the world. So if something I say doesn't resonate with you, or you don't resonate with me, it doesn't mean that we can't be friends. It just means that we have different belief systems, different ideas, and we're able to look at each other and say, okay, we have differences. But it doesn't mean that I have to cut you out because you have a difference. It means I have an opportunity to learn and to see why that person, or why Iggy feels or thinks that way, or why I can see why my friend feels or acts that way or feels that way. It gives me an opportunity to learn and to digest and ingest these different parts of my friends and family who have completely different belief systems than mine. Anyways, guys, peace and love. It's good to be here. Matakuyasin, ho'oponopono. I just love you guys. It's good to be here. Drum Circle Saturday at Black Lick Park. Look on my event page or on my web page. Supposedly there's a big storm coming Saturday, so keep you posted, let you know what's going on with that. Tells you how much I've been paying attention. I didn't even know a big storm was coming. Anyways, guys, love you guys. Take care, and appreciate you, taking time to be with me this evening and let me share my thoughts and feelings and emotions about where I'm at and where the shifting is happening in my life. And share with me your shifts, and share with me your feelings, your emotions about how you feel about stuff. All right, take care. Have a good night.